Good morning to all. Today topic is Spring MVC with Hibernate from CO2. Hibernate is a Java framework that simplifies the development of Java application to interact with the database. It is an open source lightweight object relational mapping tool. It implements the specification of JPA for data persistence. The object relational mapping tool simplifies the data creation, data manipulation, and data access. It is a programming technique that maps the object to the data stored in the database. Some advantage of Hibernate framework. One is it is a open source and lightweight. Second one, fast performance. The performance of Hibernate framework is faster because cache is internally used in Hibernate framework. Third, database independent query. Hibernate query language is an object-oriented version of SQL. It generates a database independent queries. And another advantage is automatic table creation. Hibernate framework provides the facility to create the table of database automatically. So there is no need to create tables in the database manually. And it simplifies the complex join. Fetching data from multiple tables is easy in Hibernate framework. So these are the advantage of Hibernate framework. Let us understand how to use Hibernate with the Spring MVC in this session. So let us start creating a new project in Eclipse. So I'm going to use the option File, New, Dynamic Web Project. Let me give the project name. So after providing the project name, make sure your target runtime Apache Tomcat, which is installed in your system, and Dynamic Web Module version 3.1. Then you can proceed with next option. Here you can see the build path. If you want to add additional build path, we can add by using the option add folder. Later also we can add once the project is created. So let me proceed without adding any additional build path here. Next, need to enable the checkbox to generate web.xml. Then click on finish. It will start creating a dynamic web project. Once the background process is done, then we can convert this project into a Maven project. By right click on the project name, use the option configure, then choose convert to Maven project. If you want to change group ID, artifact ID, you can change here. Otherwise, you can proceed with the default value. Let me finish with the default values. Now there is a change in the directory structure of the project which we created now. So this is the file form.xml opens in the editor. Next, I'm going to create a space for adding the dependencies. Here I can add the tag dependencies. So inside we can list out all the required dependencies to implement Hibernate with the Spring MVC. We can get the dependency details from the website mvnrepository.com. You can go to the website mvnrepository.com. There we can search the dependency. So let me search the first dependency for implementing a Spring Web MVC. You can search by using the keyword Spring MVC in the website. Then you will get a link for Spring Web MVC. Click on the link Spring Web MVC and choose the version 5.3.39. The reason is I'm using Tomcat 8.5. I already told it depends on the Tomcat version running on the system. So choose 5.3.39, copy the dependency details, then return back to the code and paste it inside the tag dependencies. So this is the dependency required to implement a Spring MVC. Then we are going to connect with the database so that we need to have a dependency for MySQL connector. So return back to the same website. So where we searched the dependency for Spring MVC, in the same website we can search by using the keyword MySQL connector. Then it will provide the link to get dependency for MySQL connector. Click on the link MySQL connector /j. Choose the latest version. It's not depends on the Tomcat server running on the system. We can choose the latest version and copy the dependencies and return back to the project, and we can paste here. So this is the dependency I copy pasted for MySQL database. Next, I'm going to implement the Hibernate, so that I need to have the dependency for Hibernate core. So go to the same website. You can search by using the keyword Hibernate core. Then we will get a link for Hibernate ORM Hibernate core. Click on the link Hibernate ORM. Then choose the latest version and copy paste the dependencies. So return back to the project and paste it inside the tag dependencies. So three dependencies I copied and pasted here. One more dependency is required to convert Java object to JSON and JSON to Java object. So we can search the one more dependency in the same website by using the keyword JSON. Then we will get a link. Then click on the link JSON. Choose the latest version 2.11 is available and copy paste to the project. So I copy pasted uh, one dependency for implementing Spring MVC and another one for MySQL database and third one to implement Hibernate framework and fourth one conversion of JSON to Java and Java to JSON. So once adding the dependencies in the form.xml, then we can save and close and update the project. If we make any changes in the form.xml, immediately we need to update the project is a good practice. So right click on the project name and use the option Maven and then click on update project. Enable the checkbox to force update, then click on OK. And we have to wait until if any background progress is running, it downloads some jar files from the net based on the dependency which we added. Once updation is done, then we can start implementing the concept Hibernate with the Spring MVC. Then start implementation. Go to the location Java resources and find the build path src main Java. Here I'm going to create a packages. So how I implemented Spring JDBC template in the first online session, the same procedure I'm going to follow. I'm going to follow the annotation methods. So right click on the build path src main Java, then create a new package called klu.config. So create a package in the name klu.config. Then create one more package in the same location by right click on src main Java. I just name the package as klu.controller. Then create another package by repeating the same procedure klu.model. So once these three packages are created in the build path src main Java, right click on the build path and click on refresh so that it will be organized properly. So one thing we need to observe, I created three packages. One is for configuration, one is for controller, and another one is for model. All these three packages I created inside KLU. So here the KLU will be act as a base package. In Spring Framework, one base package will be created. Then all the packages should be placed inside the base package. That's why I created packages using klu.config, klu.controller, and klu.model. Then we can start configuring the Spring MVC framework. Choose the package klu.config, right click and use the option new class. I just name the class as MVC config. So once the class is created, then we need to convert this plain Java class into configuration class by adding the annotation @configuration. So add the annotation @configuration. Then one more annotation is required, that is component scan. We need to provide the base package name. What is my base package? It is KLU. So I created all three packages inside KLU. So KLU will act as a base package. Then also enable the web MVC. So then we can implement with the interface web MVC configurer. So now once this was done, then we can start adding one more Java class in the package klu.config. Right click on the package klu.config. Then choose new Java class. Here we can name the class as app config. So naming is our choice. We can assign any name. So I just given the name of the previous class as MVC config, and the current class I given the name as app config. Then we can finish. So once the class is created, we need to apply the inheritance with the parent class abstract annotation config dispatches servlet initializer. So inherit with the parent class abstract annotation config dispatches servlet initializer. So once it was done, we will get an error on the class name. Then place the cursor on the class name. We will get an option called add unimplemented methods. So click on this option, add unimplemented methods. It will add three methods. One is get root config classes, and another one get servlet config classes, and the last one get servlet mapping. We can do the servlet mapping here. So go to the method get servlet mapping and observe the return type of the method. It is a string array. So that I'm going to create a string array here, new string, and initialize with a value slash. Slash means I'm going to set a root path for the controller. Then after go to the method get root config class. The return type is a class array. So that I'm creating array of the class by using new keyword class array with value. Here we can list out the configuration classes. So we have only one configuration class, that is the class name is MVC config. So that I'm going to provide the class name here MVC config dot class. So once this was done, then we can create one Java class in the package klu.controller. Right click on the package klu.controller, then go to the option new class. I just named the class as app controller. So just create a controller in the package klu.controller to handle our front ends views. So create a new Java class in the name app.controller in the package klu.controller. Once the class is created, then we can convert this class into a controller class by adding the annotation @controller. So once the class was added and converted into a controller, then I'm going to set the root URL, request mapping, request mapping slash. We can provide the root path. Slash means it is becomes a root path. Then create a method public with return type model and view. Model and view is the return type. I just name the method as index to set my welcome page for the application. So then open the method and return and create object for model and view. Create a method for object for model and view and initialize by using a new operator model and view. Then set view name, call the method set view name. Here we can provide the view name, which file we want to make as a welcome file. That name we need to provide here. Finally, we need to return the object of MV. So once this was done, just a minute. Okay. We need to return the object of MVC here. So once this was done, we need to start creating a front ends in the project. So where we can create a front end, it will be in the location src main web app. Then go to the location src main web app, create one JSP file. So just right click on the folder web app and use the option new, then choose JSP file and name the JSP file here as we can assign any name. Just I name it as employee.jsp. Then click and finish. The same file will be open in the editor. So if you open employee.jsp, this is the default code available on it. Just I'm going to set a title as JFSD and in body section I just print a message hello world. So later we can update this file. So then we can save the file and close it. Go to the file app controller.java. In the place set view name, we can provide the name of the file. So what is the name of the file? Employee.jsp. Employee.jsp. So once this was done, we can test whether the controller is responding for the request. So now I'm going to test whether the control is responding for my request. So I'm deploying the project. So right click on the project name, run on server, then choose the Tomcat service which is running in your system, then finish. Then we can see the output in the browser. So once the project is deployed, it opens it in the browser. So here we can able to see the content of the front-end file. So just now I created a front-end file in the web app directory in the name employee.jsp. I just given the message hello world in it. So I can able to see the content of the front-end file. It is correct. So actually the view name we need to provide in app.controller. In app.controller, how I given the view name? I just given the view name with the extension of the file. That's why I can able to see the content of the file in the browser. Suppose I don't want to give the extension along with the file name. So while setting the view name to model and view object, I don't want to give the extension of the file name. Just I want to give the file name. So employee is the file name without extension I'm providing now. Let us see what it will happen if you deploy this project. So once again, you can deploy and check your result. So if you deploy the project without the extension of the file provided in the set view name method, uh, we will get an error. Previously, we can able to see the content of the front-end file, but now it gives an error because it cannot able to identify the front-end file. To resolve this issue, we need to configure in the MVC configure file. So then return back to your code, open the file mvcconfig.java. Here we need to add the small configuration for views. So I'm going to override the pre-existing method. The method type is, return type is void, and the method name configure view resolvers. This is the predefined method. We cannot change the method name. We need to override it and set property for the JSP file. So this method takes a object of view resolver registry. So view resolver registry object is the parameter for the method. So here by using the parameter of the method view resolver registry and call the call the method JSP. This method needs two parameter. One is prefix and second one is suffix. Prefix we need to set the path where the front end file is available. Once go through your directory structure where your front end file is available. In my directory structure, my front end file employee.jsp is available in the location webf. I just created it in the webf folder. So the path to access the webf is slash. If you provide the prefix value as slash, by default it will go to the directory webf. Then suffix is extension of the file. So what is my file extension? Employee.jsp. .jsp is the suffix. So here we can provide the extension of the file in the second parameter. So once this configuration is done in the file mvc config, then we can save. Again, we need to redeploy and check whether we can able to see the content of employee.jsp file or not. So once it is deployed, it will be open in the editor. Now I can able to get the content of my front end file. So previously I can get error because I removed the extension while assigning value to the view name. So now I can able to get the content of the front end file. So like this, we can configure the views in Spring MVC framework. Then we will focus on the concept of Hibernate. So to implement the Hibernate concept, I'm going to create an entity class and implementation class, that is DAO class in the package model. So now I right click on the package klu.model and create a new Java class. I just name the class as employee. So just I'm creating an entity class with two or three properties. First, convert this plain Java class into an entity class by adding the annotation @entity. Then map this entity class with the table by using the annotation @table. Here you can provide name of the table so that the Hibernate framework will create a table in the database automatically based on the name which we provided here. I just name it as employee. So my table name is employee. Then the entity class with two or three data members. Let me create a data member ID and a string name. ID and name is enough to understand the concept of Spring framework. I don't want to add more properties to get confusing. So after this, one of the data member I want to use as a primary key. So ID I would like to use as a primary key so that I'm adding the annotation @ID. If you use control space, you can able to see the annotations. Type two or three letters, then use control space. So why I'm adding annotation ID? Because I'm going to use this particular field as a primary key. Then I'm going to use another annotation @column. Here we can provide the name of the column. This annotation helps us to map this particular data member with the database table column name. So in database also, I want to create the column with the same name as ID. Then second one is a non-primary key value. So no need to include @ID. Just map with the database table columns by using the annotation @column and provide the name of the column. So I just want to create a column the database in the name as it is similar to the data member here. So then we can generate getter and setters that already you know, but just right click on the file name employee.java and use the option next to the build path. You will have an option called source. Then go to the option generate getter and setters and make sure whether you selected all the data members of the class. Then click on generate. So once the getter and setters are generated, then we can add one more method to string also, so that we can able to see the values of the data members. So right click on the file, repeat the same procedure. Right click on the file and use the option source, then go to choose generate to string. Make sure the data members are selected, then click on generate. Now you can able to see the method to string at the end of this class. So this method, wherever we try to display the object, it will display the string in the form class name and the data members id and its value, name and its value. So then save it. Now the entity class is ready. How I created, I just create one class in the package klu.model. I named the class as an employee. Then I converted the plain Java class into entity class by adding the annotation at the rate entity. Then uh, I assigned a table name. So the Hibernate framework will help us to create a table at the time of deployment. So based on the table name we provided here, it will create a table in the database. That is one of the advantage in Hibernate framework. Then I created two data member. One is ID and another one is name. ID I want to use as a primary key, so that I added at the rate ID annotation and mapping this particular data member into the database table column by using at the rate column name equal to ID. And second one, name is a non-primary key value, so that no need to include at the rate ID like previous one. Just map this with the database table column. So once this was done, then I generated getter and setter for the data members ID and name. Then and also I generated toString method. So wherever the object is displayed by using a toString, it will give the details about the class name and the members available on the class. Once entity class is ready, then we can start adding a DAO class. So right click on the same package klu.model and create a new Java class. I just name it as the employee manager. So this I'm going to use as a DAO class. Then finish. Now the implementation class is added. Here we can start implementing to perform all the operation insert, update, delete and retrieving data from the table. Let us do one by one. Before that, we need to do a configuration for Hibernate. So where we can do the configuration, we need to add a build path like src main Java. One more build path is required, that is src main resources. At the time of project creation, I didn't include the build path src main resources. So that I'm going to create it manually now. So for creating another build path resources, you can go to the location src main. uh, from main you can start creating. So right click on the main folder and use the option new folder. What is the folder name? Resources. So provide the folder name resources, then finish. Now you can able to see the build path src main resources. So once it is created, if you right click your project name and refresh, so it will be organized properly. So now we can able to see the build path src main resources under Java resources. Suppose we cannot able to one after creating a folder resources, we cannot able to see the build path here for the newly created folder. Sometimes it may happen. In such cases, what we need to do, just right click on the folder which we created recently inside the main, right click it and use the option build path. Then there is an option called use as a source folder. So click on this. Now it will be added as a source folder. Okay. Then we can start adding a configuration file here. So right click on the newly created build path src main resources and use the option new, then find out the XML file here. If it is not, you can go to others and search using the keyword XML file, then you can able to get the option to create a XML file. Then next, provide the file name hibernate.cfg.xml. CFG stands for configuration. If you created a file in this name, it will be automatically configured. So no need to provide the file name while creating a session factory. If you change the file name, it may not identify, I may not locate the file hibernate.cfg.xml while creating a session factory. We need to do it manually. So better we can create a file in the name, in the standard name, hibernate.cfg.xml. Then finish. Now the file has been created. Then we can start adding the configuration and namespaces here. So let me add the document type doc type, uh, the tag name hibernate configuration. Hibernate configuration is the tag name. It is from system library located in http://www.hibernate.org/dtd/ the file name hibernate configuration version 3.0.dtd and extension of the file name. This is the namespace we need to add. So suppose after adding the namespace, you may get error on this statement. To resolve that error, you just go to the menu called window and then preferences, then choose Movent, enable the checkbox. Suppose you download Artifact Java doc is already enabled, just uncheck it and apply and close. If it is not yet enabled, enable it and then apply and close. The error will be resolved. Then you can start adding the tag Hibernate configuration. So here we can do the configuration for Hibernate. So once the tag is added, inside we can add another tag called session factory. So inside we can list out the properties by using the tag property. There are 6 properties are there for configuring Hibernate with MySQL database. Let me list out one by one. First one is Hibernate. We should not have a spelling mistake. So be conscious on the spelling. Hibernate dot dialect. This is the first property we need to set. We can get the information for Hibernate dialect from Google. You just go to your browser, just search Hibernate dialect for MySQL. Then you can get information for MySQL. So this is the actual value org.hibernate.dialect.mysql dialect. You can copy it from Google in from any website. Uh, you can refer any website. You can take help from the Google and copy and paste it. So the actual value, if you knows, you can type directly. So the value is org.hibernate.dialect.mysql dialect. No need to provide version number here. Some Google reference will give the value for hibernate.dialect with version number. So we can avoid the version number. So it will be generic. So value is org.hibernate.dialect.mysql dialect without any version numbers. So all your properties should be generic. Then another property hibernate dot connection dot driver class driver underscore class. Here you can provide the driver class name for MySQL. So already you know, I think com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. This is the driver class value for MySQL database. These details also we can take help from Google and we can search and copy paste here. And then, so here D is capital letter. So better you can search it in Google and copy paste it here. And the next property name is hibernate dot connection dot URL. So here we need to provide the connection string to establish connection with MySQL database. The connection URL for MySQL is jdbc colon mysql colon double slash localhost colon the default port number of MySQL 3306. Then which database you want to connect from that MySQL database. I just named the database as JFSD C2. So make sure whether you have a database which you provided here. So better you can go to MySQL and double check whether you have the database in your MySQL. So which database you want to create a table, that database name we need to provide. My database, one of the database is JFSD C2. That's why I given the database name here as JFSD C2. Then the next property, hibernate dot connection dot username. So the default username of MySQL is root. Then the next property, password, hibernate dot connection dot password. You can provide your MySQL database. Don't use this value. This is the password which I given at the time of installing MySQL in my system. You can provide your MySQL database password here. Then one more property to create a table automatically. That is hibernate dot hbm to ddl dot auto. This is the property help us to create automatically when deploying the project. So the value for this property is update. We can provide two different values for the property hibernate.hbm to ddl.auto. One is create and another one is update. If you provide a value create, each and every deployment, it must create a table in your database. If table is already exist, it will drop the table and recreate the table. If you provide a value update here, it will search the database for the table based on the entity class information. If the table is already exist, it won't create it. So that it will able to add new data into the existing table. So the recommended value for this is update. If you given create, it won't give any error. What will happen each and every deployment, the table is created, recreated. So existing table, existing data will be lost. New table will be created in each and every deployment. So we can proceed with update. It won't affect the existing data in the table. Next, we need to provide the mapping for the entity class. So what is the class name, my entity class name? We can add the tag mapping and use the attribute class. What is my entity class, where it is available? It is available in the package klu.model. So go to the location where it is available. Employee.java is the entity class. It is available in the package klu.model. We need to provide the complete path here. klu.model dot the class name employee. So this is the value we need to provide for mapping. So once this configuration is done in the hibernate.cfg.xml, then we can save this file and we can start implementation in the implementation class employee manager.java. So go to the class employee manager.java and start creating the methods to perform insert operation, update operation, and delete operation, and also retrieve data from the database. So let me start implementing a method to perform a insert operation first. Then we can further add methods to perform remaining operation. Let me add a method public uh, return type I'm using as a string. I just name the method as save data. Let me take object of the entity class. What is the entity class? Employee. So choose your entity class employee and create object for it. Take parameter of the entity class object to this method. So then start creating object for session factory. So create an object for session factory. I just name the object as SF and it will be initialized by using the class configuration dot configure dot build session factory. So we need to build a session factory first, then create object for session. So I just try to create object for the session. After giving 2 or 3 letters, use control space. Now you can able to see the interface, multiple interface in the same name, session, again session, session, session. There are 5 interface with the same name. You need to select it from the package org.hibernate. If you selected from some other packages, it won't work. So while selecting the interface, make sure whether you are selecting from the right package. So which one we need to select? It is from org.hibernate. So select it and we can assign a name. I will give the object name in small letter session and initialize by using the object of session factory by the method open session. Once session is created, then we need to initiate the transaction. So we can use the session object and call the method get transaction dot begin. So begin the transaction. At the end, we must close the transaction. That means commit the transaction. Session dot get transaction dot commit. So in between, we can perform some operation, whether it is an insert, update, or delete, or read, whatever it is. The operation should be done in between the get transaction begin and commit. So now I'm going to perform insert operation. So that I'm using session object and I can able to call the method. One of the method is persist. We can call the method persist and pass the input parameter. So our inputs are available in the parameter object E is the object of entity class and pass it as a parameter to the method persist. It will perform insert operation. So once this is done, we can return the acknowledgement. So we can write acknowledgement, new employee data has been added. This is the acknowledgement we can return. Once we successfully done the insert operation, no need to write any query to perform insert operation. That is the advantage of Hibernate. Hibernate will take care. So all the transaction to the database in the form of object, not in the form of query. Then we can return. Actually, it is correct. But the good practice is we need to freeze the resources. So what are the resources we created? Session factory and session that must be released. So first I'm going to release the method close and I can release another object session dot sorry SF session factory dot close. So what I done, I created 2 objects. One is for session factory and one is for session. And I added the statement transaction begin and transaction commits. In between, I'm performing insert operation. Then I freeze those 2 objects. Session I closed and session factory also I closed. So then finally, I'm returning the acknowledgement new employee data has been added. So once the implementation is done, then we can go to the controller class, we can start adding the service for testing. This is the controller app controller I created to handle my views front end parts. So that to avoid confusion, I'm creating a new controller in the package klu.controller. Create a new class and name it as employee controller. So this is the class I'm going to use to perform the database operation. So here I had the annotation at the rate REST controller, and I'm going to set the API by using the annotation request mapping. So here I can set the API name. So API name I given as employee. Inside we can create a number of services. This and all I already explained in the previous session, in the first session of online class. So here I'm going to create a method using post mapping. We can set the URL to call this particular service. I just given the name of the service as save and create a method public string save with the parameter at the rate request body. We can take input from the request body for this parameter. So parameter of the employee class object. So parameter is employee class object and create a method. Then we can return by creating object for the implementation class. The employee manager object is required because there only we return a method to perform insight operation. So create object for employee manager and call the method save data to perform insight operation. Instead of creating employee manager again and again each and every service, one service I created for perform insight operation. Next, I'm going to create another service for update operation, one more service for delete operation, so that I can create the object of employee manager globally. So what is the class name of the implementation class? Employee manager. I just name it as a EM. We cannot create object just like this without uh, implementing the dependency injection concept. If you want to use dependency injection, then go to the class employee manager and make it as a service class by adding the annotation at the rate service. If you added the annotation to your implementation class at the rate service, then you can create object without initializing. So with the help of at the rate auto wire. So now the object is created for the class employee manager and the service is created in the name save. Inside, by using the object of employee manager, I can able to call the method save data and pass the input which we received from the request body. We can pass the input along with the request in the form of JSON that will be converted into a Java object here. That Java object passed as an parameter to save data method. Then control will move from here to the implementation class employee managers save data method. Whatever logic we have here, that will get executed. Finally, we are returning the acknowledgement new data has been added. Let us test whether it is inserting the data into the database. So right click on the project, go to the option run as run on server. Once it is deployed, it will opens in the browser. Hmm. So it opens in the browser after deployment. Here I can able to see my front end content. Later we will update this front end. So what is the URL I can paste for the particular service? I can copy this URL, use a Postman tool. So you can use a Postman tool for testing. So let me add a Postman tool. So I hope Postman tool is visible on the screen. Here you can test. So set the request type as post and provide the URL which we copied from the browser, followed by the API name. This is the API name I given in the controller. So just go through the controller. What is the API name I given? In employee controller, the API name I given as employee. So that I provided the API name employee here, then followed by the service. So save is the service name which we created in the controller. This is the complete URL to call a particular service. Then we can pass input in the form of JSON. So click on the tag body, then choose your input type is raw input and the format of input is JSON. Here you can provide your JSON data. So how many fields we have in the entity class? Just go through the entity class. How many fields we have in it? In employee.java, we have two data member, ID and name. So we need to pass value to these two data members. So in Postman tool, I'm going to pass value to ID, the employee ID 5848 and employee name. So it is a string, so it will be enclosed with double quotes. So then we can send a request. So click on send button and wait for some time. It will create a table in the database automatically. And the data which we provided here in the form of JSON that will be inserted into the table. So now I can get the acknowledgement new employee data has been added. Let us verify the same from the database. So go to the database and refresh the database table. Right click on the table and refresh all. Now I can able to see the table employee. So this was created automatically by the Hibernate. Then try to execute a select query for the table employee. You can able to see the content. This is the content I provided from Postman tool in the form of JSON. So after click on the send button, the control will go to the controller employee controller.java to execute the service which is named as save. Along with your input, JSON will be converted into Java object and that Java object is passed as a parameter to the save data from employee manager. Then control will move to employee manager.java and try to execute the content which we have in the method save data with the input. So here we are performing insert operation. I'm not writing any query to perform insert operation. So it will perform insert operation with the database and also I'm not creating a table in the database. These are the advantage of Hibernate. Hibernate will take care of creating a table in the database and also all the transactions in the form of Java object, not in the form of query. So then finally it returns that see this acknowledgement in the Postman tool. New data has been added. Then we verified the same in both Postman tool and also in the database. So in database also I can able to see the value. So just a minute, my charging is low. Let me charge it. I connected a charger. So let me continue further implementation. This is for insert operation. So next I'm going to perform update operation, delete operation and read operation. To perform update operation, how we created a method save data, like that we can create a new method called update data and take parameter of the entity class employee. Write the same logic. So better we can copy this logic and paste it here and make changes on it. Otherwise, we can start writing the same logic, creating a session factory and a session object. Then begin the transaction. By using the session object, you can call get transaction dot begin. So then we need to identify the particular record from the database. We need to retrieve the particular record from the database to make changes on it. In order to complete the update operation, we need to modify the existing data retrieved from the database. So first we need to retrieve the data from the database based on the primary key. In employee.java, there is a primary key called ID. So based on ID, I want to retrieve a record from the database first. Then I can change the value of the name of the employee. Then again, it will be saved in the database. So for retrieving data from the database, I can create an object, temporary object for the entity class employee. Then I can use the session dot. I can call a method find find. Here you can provide the class name and primary key. So what is the class name? Employee is the entity class. So employee dot class is the class name and the primary key is available in the input parameter. What is my input parameter? E is the object of input parameter, object of employee class. This object also having two data member, one is ID and name. So I can pass my primary key through this object. So I can get my primary key by using the get method. I can use the get ID method to get my primary key from my input object. So this find method will help us to retrieve a particular record from the table based on the ID. Then we make some changes on it. So temporary dot set name. I want to change the name of the employee. So we can use the set method to set value to the data member. Okay, there are two data members in the class employee. One is ID and another one is name. Now I'm going to modify the name so that I'm going to use set method to set value to the name. So my input is available in the parameter E. So I can take my input by using get name method. So by using get name method, I can take the value which I want to modify it. That will be assigned to the existing data which is retrieved from the database. The data which is retrieved from the database is available in temporary object. Input is available in E. So the value of E dot get name assigned to the existing data of database. Then we can session dot. There is a function called merge. By using a merge function, we can save the object temp. So these functions help us to perform update operation. So what are the changes we make? Name has been changed based on the input. That changes will be saved permanently into the database. By using the method merge, we can save the changes permanently into the database. So actually what we are trying to do here, retrieving data from the database based on the primary key with the help of find method. Find is one of the method available in Hibernate framework. That method retrieves a particular record from table that will be available in the temporary object. Then we changed the name. Whatever the name exists previously, that has been changed based on the input. Then the changes are saved permanently into the database by using a merge function, merge method. Then we can commit the transaction. Session dot get transaction dot commit. So transaction is committed, then we can freeze the resource. Session dot close and session factory dot close. We freeze the resources. Then finally returning the acknowledgement. The return type of the method is a string so that we can return an acknowledgement employee data has been updated. We can return the acknowledgement as the employee data has been updated. Once it was done, the implementation method is ready to perform update operation into the database using Hibernate. Then go to the controller class, create a new service to perform update operation by using the annotation @put mapping. Uh, Provide the name of the operation. This is the URL to call this particular service. I just given the name of the service as update. Then create a method public with return type string. I just name it as update with an input @request body employee class object as a input. So inside we can return by using the object of implementation class. EM is the object of implementation class already available. So by using the object of implementation class, I can call the method which I created now, update data with my input. So service is also added in the controller for update operation. Then save the changes, start deployment. Oh, sorry, I forgot to change the screen. So let me explain one more time. In employee manager, I just created a new method update data similar to save data. So how we taken the input of employee class object, the same way I'm created a method update data and taken the input of employee class object. The same logic I used. So only the changes in between get transaction begin and get transaction commit. In between what I did, I added three statements. First statement is created object, temporary object for the class employee. Then I call the method find. I try to retrieve a particular record from the database. Then only we can able to make changes on the record and save the changes into the database permanently. So find method help us to retrieve a data from the database. This find method takes two parameter. One is employee class and another one is primary key. So primary key is available in the input object E. The input object E have two data member. One is ID and name. ID is a primary key. We can use a get method to get ID from this input. So based on this primary key, it retrieves the record from the table that is available in the temporary object. Then by using this temporary object, I can change the name of the employee. So set name, I'm going to set value to the data member of a particular class. So the temp is the object of employee class. Employee class having a two data member, one is ID and name. By using a set name method, I'm changing the name of the employee. So what is my input? Input is available in the parameter object E. I can get my input by using get name that will be assigned to the temporary object by using set name. After making changes on the name of the employee, we need to save it permanently into the database. That's why I'm using a merge method. This merge method helps us to save the existing data after making changes on it. So it will be save the changes permanently into the database. It will perform update operation. Then the transaction is committed. As like previous one, session closed and session factory closed. We need to freeze the resources. Then finally, I'm returning the acknowledgement. Employee data has been updated. So after creating the implementation method update data, then I move to employee controller.java. Here I added a new service. How I added a service for to perform save operation. But the thing is, I'm using a put mapping. Post mapping for insert operation, put mapping for update operation, delete mapping for delete operation, and get mapping for read operation. There are four type of mappings can be done in the controller class. Since it is the update operation, I am using put mapping. I given the URL as update. Then I created a method update with input taken from the request body in the form of JSON. That input is converted into Java object heap that will be passed to update data method which we implemented in employee manager class. Now we will test how it works. Then start deployment, run on server and choose the server which is running on your system. Then go to the browser and check uh, you can able to see the content of your front end. So now I can able to see the content of my front end. Then I can test by using a Postman tool. So go to Postman tool. What type of request it is? Put request. The request method is put. There is a change in the URL. It's not a save operation. Here I'm going to perform update operation. I want to call the service which I created in employee controller.java file. This is the complete URL to call that particular service. Then I can provide my input in the form of JSON in the request body. So here I want to update my data. So let me check what is the existing data available in my database. This is my database. The employee class having one record, employee ID and name. I want to change the name of the employee. So how we can change by using this Postman tool. In Postman tool, I provided the employee ID 5848. I want to change, update the name of the employee. Here I'm going to update it. Employee name along with the department. So this is the changes. This is the changes I want to make in the existing data in the database. So after providing your data, you can submit your request by click on the send button and wait for the response. Once you submit it, it will execute the method update data and it will return the acknowledgement. I can get the acknowledgement employee data has been updated. So let me check the database whether the changes are done or not. So go to the database. Previously, the employee name is there without the department. So now I try to execute the query, select query for the table. The data which I provided in my request body in the form of JSON that I can able to see it in the database. I try to change the name of the employee along with the department name for the employee ID 5848. This is the input I given in my request body in the form of JSON. So this is my input. Whatever input I given for this primary key 5848, I want to update the name of the employee. So the data is updated into the database. So like this, we can perform update operation using Hibernate. Then we will try for delete operation. For delete operation, we can create a method here, like how we created update operation. In the same way, we can create a new method for update operation. Public return type is string, and I just name the method as delete data. For delete operation, no need to take the entire object of the entity class to delete. Just primary key is enough to perform delete operation. So let me take only the primary key. Int ID is the primary key. Instead of taking the object of employee class, we just take only the primary key to perform delete operation. Then follow the same procedure. Create object for session factory. Better we can copy paste from the previous method. So create object for session factory and session. Then begin the transaction. Session dot get transaction dot begin, and then uh, commit the transaction. In between, we will perform delete operation. So let me add the statement get transaction dot commit. In between, we will perform the delete operation. Then close the resources. Session dot close and dot session factory dot close. Then return the acknowledgement. The employee data has been deleted. You can return this acknowledgement. Employee data has been deleted. So here in between the transaction begin and commit, we can perform the operation. So here I'm going to perform a delete operation based on the primary key ID. So we can use the session object, and there is a method called remove. So we can use the remove method directly. We can call the remove method from Hibernate framework, and we can pass the primary key remove ID. This will perform delete operation. So let us test how it works, whether it is delete a record from the table based on the primary key or not. Once the implementation is done for delete, then it should be added into the controller. Let me create a new service in the controller for delete operation. So what is the annotation we need to use for delete? That is delete mapping. Slash, I just name the service as delete, then create a method, public string delete, and take parameter. So no need to take from request body. We can pass the input just only one value, that is ID. We can pass along with the URL so that we can use the annotation. Request param is the annotation. Use request param and provide the parameter name. ID we can take from the URL and assign to this parameter. Inside you can call employee managers delete data method and pass ID as an input. So once the service is added for delete operation in the controller, here I'm not taking the object. I'm not taking the input from the request body. I want to take input for this parameter from the URL. So that's why I changed the annotation here at the rate request param. In URL, I want to pass value to this parameter ID. So what is the parameter name? I can use it in the URL ID. So ID values taken from the URL and assigned to the parameter variable ID. That will be passed as a input to delete data. Then the controller will move to employee manager.java along with the input. Then we try to execute this logic. It will perform delete operation. Finally, we are returning the acknowledgement. The employee data has been deleted. Then we can test it. So start deployment. Right click, run as run on server, and choose the Tomcat server. Once it is deployed, you can able to see the result in the front end. So this is the front end content. I can able to see it in the browser. Then we can test using a Postman tool. So go to Postman tool. What is the request method is delete. Change the request method as delete and provide the correct URL to perform delete operation. This is the URL to call a particular service which we implemented in employee controller.java file. So this is the URL to perform delete operation. For that particular service, we need to pass input to the parameter along with the URL. So here I want to pass input to my parameter. What is the parameter name I given in the annotation at the rate request para? I given ID as a parameter name. ID equal to which ID I want to delete from the database. In my database, I have only one record as of now. So this is my database. I have only one record that I want to delete. What is the ID for that particular record? 5848. So the same ID I want to pass through the postman tool. So ID equal to 5848. This is the record I want to delete it from my database table. No need to provide any JSON data for this particular operation. So I'm not passing any JSON data in the request body. Just click on send to submit our request and wait for the response. So there is some issues in the code. Okay, understand. The problem is I'm not retrieving the record from the table. How we retrieve the record from the table based on the primary key? We must first retrieve the data from the table. Then only we can able to remove it. So we need to first retrieve the data from the table. So create object for employee class. Uh, hmm. Uh, so here directly we are performing the delete operation by using the method session.remove. By I'm passing the primary key. It is wrong. So the reason is first we need to retrieve the record from the table. How we retrieve the record from the table to make changes on it. Then we saved the changes in the table permanently by using a merge. Like that, we need to retrieve the record from the table first. Then only we can able to remove it from the table. So here I'm creating a temporary object for employee. By using the find method, I can able to retrieve a particular record from the table. Find the class name is employee.class and the primary key is ID. So this statement help us to retrieve the record from the table that is available in the temporary object. Then we can remove this temporary object. So how can we remove? Session.remove and pass the temporary object. So first we are retrieving the data from the table based on the primary key that will be saved in the temporary object. Then by using the method remove, we remove that particular record from the table permanently. So now it will work. Save the changes and start redeployment and test using a postman tool. So once deployment is done, then we can test using the postman tool. Now I will submit my request to perform delete operation. I can get a acknowledgement employee data has been deleted. So as of now, we performed three operations: insert, update, and delete. Okay, let me stop here. In this session, I just demonstrated Hibernate with the Spring MVC framework, how to create a Spring MVC, then how to create controller class and model. And in model package, I added the entity class employee and configure this entity class by using the annotations at the rate entity, table, ID, column, everything I explained. Then I added implementation class employee manager. There implemented three operations. One is insert, and another one is update, and another one is delete by using Hibernate. All these three methods are added into the controller. with the help of post mapping, I added a service called save to perform insert operation. By using put mapping, created another service for update operation. By using delete mapping, created another service for delete operation. And all these three operations are tested using Postman tool. The remaining retrieving data from the table using Hibernate will be demonstrated in the next session. Thank you.